January 16th on the lunar calendar is marked by the Day of Visitation. On this day, beings come that should not exist in this world. It would seem that in an ordinary city on an ordinary day for people, there is such chaos that no one can cope with. And here in one of the alleys in which yesterday it was still calm, now rushes as strong as a man to save his life. And he is followed by a monster who comes to this world only once a year to satiate people who are mired in their fears and sins. This man realized that everything was over for him. He could not escape from these fierce monsters who only wanted to kill him. In tears, he turned around to see if he had gotten away from these ferocious creatures, but there were so many of them that it was impossible to escape, for they were all over the city. The monsters called Bomas are divine beasts, mystical creatures spawned by evil spirits. They appear in a city mired in corruption and chaos. And in the midst of all this chaos, there is room for good, among all the people who are fleeing as best they can from these ferocious monsters. There's a team of people fighting for the lives of innocent people. This team calls themselves the Chacoans. Year after year, they protect the people, but they are not strong enough to save all the people all over the city. "It's time to start hunting monsters," said their leader, and they rushed to destroy the monsters with all their might, each with their own weapon that they used to slice the demons apart. One had a sword as sharp as the sharpest blade. The other has a spear that pierces monsters in seconds. Some use daggers. And here was a man who had already said goodbye to his life and dreamed of a quick demise. Trembling, he looked into the eyes of the monster who wanted to tear him apart in no hurry. While the other defenders of the city were fighting the rest of the monsters, this monster managed to get to the man. The man was almost done saying goodbye to his life when suddenly he was saved from imminent death, wrapping his chain with a dagger at the end around the monster's head. The protector yanked with all his might to protect the man from death. The monster's head flew off to the side and he collapsed dead. The monster hunter sprang up and looked around at the situation on the battlefield with those ferocious monsters. His partner was fighting an albino white tiger that was 3 times his size. But this spear-wielding protector realized that the sinister monster had no chance against him. He swung his spear with such great speed that the monster didn't even realize what had happened. The tiger's head shattered into 2 pieces from such a powerful blow. The defender didn't even turn around to watch the fierce tiger fall dead from such a blow. The defender, who was good with daggers, was fighting a monster as big as the other monsters on the battlefield. He dodged the monster's attacks as they were slow for him. He only threw a series of blows from his arsenal. The blows were so strong and fast that the monster was not only unable to dodge them, it was unable to give him anything in return. While he was busy with that ferocious monster, he was attacked from the rear by 2 monsters. It seemed like a good idea for them to attack one of the defenders while he was dealing with their twin. But they didn't take into account the fact that the defenders fight as a team and cover one in case of such situations. It was one of the defenders who used his bow to fight and cover his partners. He killed 2 monsters with a single arrow. Also, their team had a defender who was blowing up everything and shooting with firearms. He shot every centimeter of the monsters so that they couldn't let down afterwards. Some monsters would run away to escape him, but he didn't let anyone go. He destroyed every last monster. As the monster who ran away from him, he caught up with a grenade which he threw right in the face of the monster, from which he was waiting for his imminent death. He only turned away from the fleeing monster so that it would not be so blinded by the light from the grenade explosion. Also present were the defenders who used swords to destroy monsters. They cut them into pieces as if they were slicing butter. After all, their blades were sharper than anything else in this world. One of the defenders had the ability to apply seals that sealed these monsters into oblivion for the rest of their lives, which they spent in eternal suffering. And so a team of 7 defenders saved another man from certain death. They approached him, held up a hand for him to hold up, and asked, "Are you okay?" To which the man, frightened to death and not realizing what was happening, asked them in a trembling voice, "Who are you?" After all, he had already said goodbye to his life, thought that he would never escape from these monsters, and then suddenly he is saved by people unknown to him. To which their leader replied, "We..." And there begins the telling of the story of how monsters get into this world and who protects humans from monsters. January 16th on the lunar calendar marks Visitation Day. Once a year, monsters break through the seal of the shadow world. They merge into crowds of people, taking on their appearance and likeness. And then, on the best of occasions, they transform into monsters and devour humans, killing enough people in one day to satiate themselves and bring chaos to this world of the living. My name is Haru. I am the deity protecting the entrance to the Inwansan Mountains, preventing monsters from entering the world of the living. I defend the entrance with all my might, but sometimes, if you really are who you introduced yourself to be, then why do monsters keep coming out? Asked the frightened man. Do you really want to know that? Asked Haru. All of this is happening in your city. Because you? Pointing his finger at the man who doesn't realize that this is happening to him specifically. You broke the seal. Haru pointed his finger at the man they saved from the monsters, from which the man was in a complete stupor. He didn't understand what was going on and why he was involved. After all, he hadn't done anything wrong. One dark night, in the town where this man lives, he met a hooded man who asked him with a smirk on his face, "Don't you want to know how your parents died?" If I had run into this strange man when I was a kid, I would have taken the chance to find out the truth. He thought, whenever I asked the teachers about my parents in the orphanage, the teachers avoided answering the question, they just avoided the subject. But the thing is that time changes people just like it changed me. Once I grew up, I realized that I had bigger problems than the death of my parents that I was so eager to learn about. I'm trying to survive in the daily grind of a part-time job. My desire to get to the bottom of this has waned. If only he had come to me a little sooner, I might have taken his bait. I definitely want to know who my parents are, but I'm not interested in that right now. Fuck you, he replied to the stranger. The strange hooded man did not give up hope of telling him what had happened to his parents, and said to him, "Don't you want to know how tragic their deaths were?" To which he replied to him, "God, sectarians know no bounds these days." But the stranger insisted, gave him his name, and informed him, "Zeha, you will reveal the secret about your parents in the mountains of Inwansan." From which Zeha stopped and didn't realize how he knew his name. The stranger saw this and said to him, "Is it of any interest to you that I know your name?" And he went on to tell him, "Do you remember that your mother was a medium, and that your family lived at Palm Rock in the Inwansan Mountains?" Zeha thought about his words. I remembered that, Zeha thought. I remember my mother's gentle embrace and the way my father sang to me. I also remember how his family was attacked by a ferocious monster and his parents did everything to protect their son from that monster. That night, I remember my father screaming, "Zeha, don't stop running!" The stranger hugged Zeha and said in his ear, "If you want to know more about them, go to Palm Rock in the Inwansan Mountains." He felt something wrong with the stranger being so close, as if it wasn't human. "There, the truth about your parents awaits you," said the stranger in the end, and vaporized right before Zeha's eyes, making Zeha at a loss as to what had happened and who the man was. "What the hell?" asked Zeha, but there was no one to answer anymore as this stranger vaporized into thin air. Zeha remembered that January 16th on the lunar calendar was the anniversary of his parents' death. Was it a coincidence that this strange man appeared on that very day? And talked to me about their deaths? Zeha thought. No, I don't think so. That night, Zeha went to the Inwansan Mountains to make sure it was some kind of stupid joke, and that was the last thing he remembered for that night. I woke up in a bright place, not realizing where I was or how I got here. My whole chest was hurting really bad. What did I forget in the hospital? Do I have a wound on my chest? Zeha thought. What the hell happened? Asked Zeha. He didn't remember anything from last night. There was a man in a suit in the room who said, "You seem to be awake, Mr. Zeha." He introduced himself to Zeha. "I'm Detective Kim Soo-hoon from the Cincy Police Department," he said to Zeha. "And what do you want from me?" Zeha asked the policeman nervously, to which he replied, "I wanted to ask you some questions about an incident that happened in the Inwansan Mountains 3 days ago," which left Zeha stunned. Wait, 3 days ago? In the Inwansan Mountains? Why are you asking me that? Zeha asked the policeman, to which he replied, "There's no one else to ask. All the others who were in the mountains, how can I put this delicately, are no longer with us. You're the only survivor." And he showed a photo of the crime scene, where the bodies of people were torn up. Zeha was in complete shock at what he saw. He didn't know what to say, because he didn't remember anything. That day, January 16th, police found the mutilated bodies of 24 people in the Inwonsan Mountains. All the victims that were found had been torn to pieces as if attacked by a wild animal. Apparently, I was brought to the hospital as soon as I was discovered, Zeha thought. The detective had many questions, but the only answer I could give was that I didn't remember anything. Eventually, he left, full of suspicion. Did the man who sent me to the mountains have anything to do with the murders? Right now, I only know two things. There's a mystery behind my parents' deaths. And the clue is in the Inwonsan Mountains, Zesha thought, and decided that he would definitely return to that place. It had been a month since he had talked to the policeman. Zeka had been thinking for a long time about what might have happened there, but he couldn't remember. A lot had changed in that time. The murders in the Inwonsan Mountains were only the beginning of the disaster. Similar cases began to happen in other parts of the city, and more often. The news published gruesome articles that sent shivers through my body and made me numb. Scars from huge claws were being found on people who had already gone to another world. Jagged teeth marks. Many corpses were missing body parts. Due to reports that the deep claw marks resembled wounds from predators, people began to name the organization believed to be involved in the murders. They were called POM, which meant tigers, monsters. Who would have thought I'd be back on these mountains where I was almost killed? Back to Palm Rock in the Inwonsan Mountains. That day, I was here too. And next to that rock. Wait, what is it? Zeha asked himself. He saw a crack that was glowing with a blue beam from the middle. Was it here before? He asked himself. That crack began to glow brighter and brighter. It began to glow so brightly that a crackling sound could be heard, as if the light was tearing the mountain from the middle, and the mountain split in two because of the crack. The crack was glowing very brightly. What's going on? His wound started to glow. My wound is glowing, said Zeha. The crack reached the top of the mountain and a bright light shot into the sky. It was visible from all over the city. The light was so bright that Zeha barely opened one eye to see what was going on there. Zeha sat on a rock and saw one of the defenders in front of him, but he didn't realize who it was. He asked himself, who is it? Haru stood in front of him. He was shrouded in blue light and looked at Zeha. Zeha sat there thinking, how could it be a man came out of the rock? And said out loud, okay, looks like I'm dreaming again. Haru answered him, this is not a dream, my child. My name is Haru. I am the Palm Rock in the Inwonsan Mountains. He introduced himself to Zehu. Zeha looked at him with an expression as if he didn't believe him at all, and mistook him for a lunatic. Yeah, I have stupid dreams. I'm ashamed to even share them with anyone, Zeka thought, blaming it all on his weird dreams. How's your wound from last month? Haru asked him. Ah, you've grown so big. You used to be so small. How did you know about my wound? Asked Zeha. I was here when it happened, Haru said in all seriousness. You mean during the killings in the Inwonsan Mountains? You were here, shouted Zeha to him. Yes, I was. And that's not surprising since I'm a deity meant to protect this world from monsters. Haru answered him, to which Zeha grabbed him by his clothes and asked him in a harsh tone. Let's get to the point. What kind of monsters are these, and what happened that night? Haru was surprised at his boldness and answered him, I see you've grown quite tough. Every year, on January 16th of the lunar calendar, beings come that should not exist in this world. Once a year, the Palms break through the seal from the shadow world. They mingle with humans and attack them. I am the deity protecting the entrance, keeping the Palms from escaping. Told him Haru who he is and what he does. To which Zeha shouted to him, okay, so be it. Let's say you're a protector deity. If you really are who you introduced yourself as, then why do the monsters keep coming out? The answer to your question is very simple. Pointing his finger at Zeha's head, he said, that answer, it's in your memories, because you... Touching his forehead, Haru said, broke the seal. From Haru's touch on his forehead, Zehu was flooded with memories. He got a sudden headache and started remembering everything. He saw some man swinging his hand at the boy. He had an eye like a tiger, glowing yellow. He also saw himself lying unconscious. He asked himself, what is this? Where are these memories coming from? In his memories, he saw that this man also had fangs like a tiger. He was saying, "I think it would be better for me to destroy you too." And after these words, Zeha fell to the ground and steam was coming from his mouth. "All my memories, they're coming back." Zeha began to remember everything that happened a month ago, January 16th on the lunar calendar. It was the middle of the night, and he was on his way to Bom Rock on Mount Inwonsan to find out if that stranger was right. When he reached the top of the rock, he saw a man standing in front of him. "There's someone here at this hour," Zeha thought. He didn't expect to meet someone at this hour on top of the mountain. The man turned around to see who had come to the mountain at this late hour. A smirk appeared on his face. "Yes, it's you, Zeha. How you've grown over the years," said the stranger. "Excuse me, do I know you?" asked Zeha to the stranger. "Who is he, and how does he know my name?" "I've never met him before," Zecha thought. "Apparently you don't remember me at all," said the stranger to him. The stranger's eyes began to light up. "Think carefully, Zeha," he said to him. "You really don't remember me?" His eyes began to glow brightly. He stared straight into Zeha's eyes. From the fact that Zeha was also looking into his eyes, Zeha's eyes began to glow with the same light. The stranger began to broadcast his memories into Zeha's head so that he would remember this stranger. And he immediately remembered that this stranger was a friend of his father's. "I used to see him often when I was younger. He was very kind to me." "Ah, so that's who you are. It's been a long time." Still with glowing eyes, Zeha replied, "Well, that's good." He looked at Zeha and answered him. "Finally, you remember me. Your father used to bring you here often and sing you songs." Pointing to the mountain, he says, "Did you know that he belonged to the tribe of Bom, who lived on the other side of the cliff?" Zeha asks him, "The Bom tribe? Who the hell are they?" An old acquaintance of the family answers him, "Only on January 16th were beings from that tribe allowed to come here. There were no exceptions for anyone." "That was until your father met your gatekeeper mother," said the family friend with a kind of anger on his face. "Your mate was a shaman who protected the gate that connected the monsters to this world. All she had to do was to sing the song of the gate, to open the gateway to the world of Bom. Thanks to her, your father MG stayed in the human world even after January 16th, though he had to return to his own world like everyone else. You were the fruit of a Bom and a human love affair. To be more precise, your mother was from a tribe of bears. Zeha has been under the control of this human all this time." He looked at Zeha and asked, "The song they sang here for me. Can you sing it?" Zeha thought about it, and a song began to play in his head with the words of a very familiar voice for him. "Come, come, that voice. Come, come, that low, enveloping, and soft voice. Come, come quickly. That voice belonged to my father." I remembered Zex. Come quickly before the gate closes." Without realizing it himself, he starts singing the very song he was sung as a child. "Come, come, come quickly before the gate closes." The family friend didn't think he could hypnotize the words out of Zeha's memory. Zeha kept humming the words from his childhood. "Hurry up and come before the gate closes." Suddenly, a bright yellow glow began to emerge from beneath the ground. The ground began to shake, and new cracks appeared. The family friend who had used Zeha to open the portal laughed at the fact that he had succeeded. All he said was, "It's working." A swirl of air appeared in the sky with a bright glow inside. The glow only got brighter and the air circle got bigger, and a sudden burst of light directly onto the mountain, making the mountain crack even more. A family friend says, "Where are those who should be here now? Come out, Bomas." The Bomas, who were summoned by Zeha, have stepped onto the mountain. They had waited so long for this day. They were in great numbers, and all stared at Zeha's so-called family friend, who spread his arms in joy that they had all returned to this world. "My power, it's finally coming back. I've been waiting for this for so long," said the family friend. And Zeka kept reciting the song from his childhood. "Come, come." The so-called family friend swung his hand toward Zeha and grabbed him by the neck. 4,000 years ago, a dirty dog like you imprisoned me. You have the blood of a shaman in you, and you can close the gates again. So, it would be best if you ceased to exist." With a swing, he scratched Zehi's chest, causing him to fall to the ground and begin to say goodbye to his life. He saw his family in front of him, his mom and dad, just as young as they were on that last night he spent with them. The so-called family friend named Hupo was very pleased with himself. There was no limit to his joy, and it was as if the smile would never leave his face now. He said to all the bomas, "Attention, now our time has come. We must continue the war that we didn't finish 4,000 years ago." Zeha lay unconscious on the mountain. He thought it was all over for him. As Zeha remembered everything, he was transported back from his memories to his consciousness. Coughing, he remembered everything that had happened. "It's better to kill you," Hupo said back then. "And my parents told me, 'Zeha, run! Hupo killed my parents that night?'" And then Zeha's tears came out. He remembered how since he was a child he had no parents and lived his days alone. It seemed to him that his parents had simply given up on him. So he was very angry with his parents. "Sometimes I missed my parents painfully. Whenever that happened, I was myself until the feeling of terrible loneliness was gone. There was no one around to comfort me. I grew stale. I even forgot how to cry. Thus my parents were dead to me. Or that's just what I thought. When Haru put his palm on my shoulder, all those feelings I was hiding deep inside came out. I understand your feelings, I do. Haru said, you've been through a lot in this life. Everything was taken from you. Your parents, even your memories of them, that must be very painful. All your suffering because of the visitors who showed up that very day. Come, child, help us in the monster hunt, said Haru. In the Eiffel Tower, reporters asked many questions to their measure. A sudden, mysterious, brutal series of murders had rattled the public. People needed someone they could turn to. In the conference room, the mayor tried to answer questions from the press. Are you aware that there are murders going on in the city? How does the company feel about these incidents? Huang Un, chairman of the Eiffel Company, is also the city's mayor. Eiffel Company has been contributing to the development of Tire City since its founding. As chairman, I feel responsible for all the heinous crimes that are now being committed. I am horrified at the extent to which the peaceful people of our city have been brutally murdered. We know the Bomas are behind this, said the town mayor. I, Huang Un, will put an end to this. I will give a reward to anyone who helps destroy the monsters. Mayor Huang Un promised to pay 50 million won per Boma's head. The press was shocked by what he said and talked it all over as they left the conference hall. Who would risk their life for 50 million? Asked a girl from the press. How can we catch creatures we know nothing about? Asked the guy, even though the amount was large enough to motivate those who were barely making ends meet. Most of the townspeople were skeptical, but the defenders were already ready to destroy the monsters. High on the roof of the building stood Haru and Zeha. Zeha would now be doing the monster hunt with them. Haru said, Let's go, my child. To which Zeha replied, Just call me Zeha. On one of the dark alleys of the city, a girl was walking by a lady and reading the news from her phone. She was amazed at what was happening in the city. 3 bodies were found around 4 p.m. today in the 1st district of Shin City. Police say the murders were committed by Bomas. Such terrible news she read while walking, lady. But suddenly she sensed something and gazed in front of her. Squinting, she looks at what is happening in front of her and thinks to herself, What is it? Man, I can't see anything without contact lenses. But still saw that it was just a fire hydrant. Watching the news was a bad idea. I'm paranoid. I'm such a coward. As soon as she said those words, someone's saliva dripped on top of her. She didn't realize what it was and just looked where it came from. On the wall above the girl sat a ferocious, tiger-like monster. The girl screamed loudly enough to be heard for several blocks, and the monster came at her to tear her apart. But the tongue of this ferocious monster was shot, causing part of its tongue to fall to the ground and part of it to stay with it. The monster stared in the direction the shot came from, and there stood Haru and Zeha with a gun. Zeha said, Yes, I got him. To which Haru replied to him, That's a strange weapon you chose to hunt with. The monster climbed down from the wall to fight a worthy opponent. Haru says to Zeha, "There he is! Time to finish him off!" The monster's eyes were glowing red. He was furious at having his tongue shot out and was fully prepared to attack. He rushed at Zeha to finish him off. Zeka started shooting at him, but alas, it was unsuccessful, as the monster was a cat monster with a very high reaction time. He simply dodged the bullets and just shortened the distance between him and Zeha. "How fast he moves!" "So that's what it is, Bomas," Zetsu thought to himself. "He's too fast." Zehu didn't have time to follow him with his eyes, and the monster successfully attacked Zehu and hurt him harder and harder. As soon as he shot at the place where the monster was, the bullets were already hitting the walls, as the monster was already in another place. And at that time, Zeha's blood was already dripping. He didn't think that his first encounter with the monster would be so painful for him. Eyes! They were so tired from such a speed, they were definitely not equipped to follow him at this speed. "Am I bleeding?" Zehu thought to himself. And then he immediately remembered his parents screaming at him, "Zeha, run!" But this time he wouldn't run. He shouted and fired at the monster, but he didn't follow him. The monster ended up behind him. He stabbed it with his hand, thus causing severe damage to Zeha. Zeha saw this and looked straight into the monster's eyes. The girl was already running away from the scene. Haru, as soon as he saw what the monster did, shouted, "Zeha!" But Zeha originally had his own plan that he wanted to carry out. Grabbing the monster by its paw, he said, "I've got you." The monster stared in horror either at Zeha's eyes or at his own hand that Zeha had grabbed. But Zeha didn't wait long and fired directly at the monster, because when you hold his hand, he can't dodge as fast as he did before. Zeka's shots made a sieve of the monster. He didn't spare any bullets on it. A good monster is a dead monster. The monster opened its mouth with a purple glow and slowly brought it closer to Zehe. Haru immediately realized that this was not good and shouted out, "Zeha, get back!" But suddenly someone fired an arrow towards the monster and blew it apart. Zeha asks, "What was that?" And Haru shouted, "Zeha, are you okay? Why the hell are you yelling right in my ear? My eardrums almost burst because of you!" shouted Zeka out to him. "Ah, sorry. You have another wound in your stomach," said Haru. What was that flash, coming from that arrow, Zeha thought, as a voice above them shouted out to them and launched 2 more arrows, nearly hitting Zeha's hands. "Keep your hands to yourself, unless you want to be without them." "This booty is ours," declared the archer on top of the house. "This guy made our job easier," said the golden-haired Lee Doc Kai from Team Number 1, Tiger Butterfly. Also visible with him was the gray-haired Minami, also from Team Tiger Butterfly. The dark-haired girl Oran said, "Well, I guess I'll get to use it twice." Also with her was the short-haired Kogi Dong. "Doc Ki, take the monster's head," said their leader Kim Sung-jin. "Wait a minute. Who are you guys?" "This is my prey," shouted Zeha. They only laughed and said, "What a fool. Did you fall off the moon? You don't know who we are. Leave him alone. Judging by the way this guy fights, he won't last long. You should thank your fate for your survival." "Hey, not so fast, thieves. Leave the head," said Zehu back to them. They said, "Did you hear what that asshole said? He called us thieves, and they just laughed." To which their ringleader turned around and rushed towards Zeha. He put his fingers in his wound and turned to Zex. "Hey, boy, how dare you call us that?" Ze was uncomfortable with the pain he was feeling. "We killed Bomb, so he's ours," team leader Tiger Butterfly told him. The whole team surrounded Zehu and started kicking him. One of the gang told him, "Tell him he's yours again. Come on, come on." Haru rushed over to help Zeha, but he already had a dagger at his throat. "Hey, one more step and that asshole's dead. Do you understand me?" The team leader turned to Zex again. "I hope you've learned your lesson. This game is not for weaklings like you." And one of the team spit on Zex lying on the floor. "I'll forgive you for the first time," said the team leader. "Better get another job while you're alive," he added. As they left, they said, "Some people really do anything for money. What an idiot." Zehu lay on the ground, beaten and exhausted, and thought to himself, "How angry and frustrated I am because I'm weak." He couldn't hold back the tears and just lay on the floor and roared. Bomb was incredibly powerful. I didn't even have time to follow his movements, and he was so helpless. But I thought I had it in me, didn't I? I thought I had Bomb's blood in me, so why am I so weak and slow like a normal person? Are you very upset? Haru asked him, to which Zeha answered him, Did you have to say that out loud? Haru says, I have a proposition for you. Why don't I train you? Zeha looked at him in surprise and asked, Are you strong? Why do you ask? Haru asked him. While I was fighting here, you were just watching. That's why I thought you weren't a good fighter. I didn't interfere to evaluate your abilities. Haru answered him. 5 low-level bomas attacked me at the same time, but I didn't even have a scratch on me. I can defeat a mid-level monster. Wait, so it was a low-level bomb? Asked Zehu with great surprise. Aren't you even surprised at how strong I am? By the way, yes. Since that day, a lot of monsters have infiltrated this world. Many of them are much stronger than the one you just fought. The Hoopoe you met back then is one of them. A month has passed since the seal was destroyed. 2,210 people have died. 1,450 suddenly disappeared. About 5,000 missing persons reports. Haru, teach me. I want to become stronger. And that was just the beginning. The second district was the city of Shin. Burning cars and houses could be seen. The city was in complete chaos. Gahyun, Dugong, the girl asked. Am I dying? Don't go, Gahyun, but alas, she's gone from our lives. Behind them were fierce monsters who only wanted to destroy people one by one. It was you! You killed my friend, said Dogong. He stood in front of them with his head up proudly and looked them straight in the eyes without fear of their gaze. There was chaos and destruction in the streets, the screams of people and the ferocious roar of the monsters who hunted with special pleasure. But in one of the alleys, there was a brutal massacre. There were 3 people who had already left this world, whose eyes were glowing with white light. And under that rain, there was a man with a gun named Do Kyung. He was looking at the area. On the soggy business card that lay in front of him, it said, For catching a monster or bandit, the city mayor will reward you generously. I can't believe you tried to attack me just because I'm alone. Standing in the rain, he said to his attacker, You're a monster! To which he replied to him, You must understand me, since you do the same thing. It's impossible to feed your family while living in a slum unless you resort to this kind of thing. At those words, Do Kyung raised his gun at him and was about to shoot at him. Please have mercy! The man with the knife shouted and rushed straight at Do Kyung. His eyes lit up with a red glow. He only shouted, I don't want to die! Do Kyung shot him in the head and immediately immobilized his attacker against him. He immediately collapsed to the ground as it was already over for him. There was a bag with a lot of money lying on the ground, which Do Kyung gladly took for himself. After a while, he reached his house, where there were still people living. One of them woke up and upon seeing him asked, Hey, Do Kyung, is that you? Did you go out again? Tomorrow is a big day. You should have just stayed home and rested properly. It's okay, don't worry about me, Do Kyung answered him. Tomorrow is your birthday, right? His friend asked him. We wanted to celebrate it after work. Do you have everything you need? Do Kyung started to look at the pictures of his friends. In such a long time, they had become so close to him that it was already a family. But in his mind, one memory kept running through his mind. I must protect my loved ones, he told himself. I'm not going to die! I want to live! Flashing in his memories was the man he had to take out that rainy evening. His hands trembled, but he continued to look at the photo. He felt uncomfortable, as if something bad was going to happen. Hey, Kyung-soo, he turned to his friend. Let's not go to work tomorrow, said Do Kyung, to which Kyung-soo replied, What do you mean, let's not go? You don't think we're good enough? Kyung-soo objected to him. It's not that at all, said Do Kyung. It's just that armed robbery of a truck is too risky. I realize it's too late to say this, but I want you to live a normal life. Kyung-soo looked at him and said, Okay, whatever you say. Do Kyung added to him, Thank you for understanding. But Kyung-soo didn't stop there. He posted in his friend's general chat room, I don't want to do something behind Do Kyung's back, but I really want to do this job. Ga-hyun replied to him, So go for it. Do Kyung is always worried about us. Now it's our turn to take care of him. Min Chul, who was present in the chat room, also agreed with them. One of their friends was already asleep at that time, but he never turned them down, so he went with them in the future. Before going to bed, he looked at him and thought, "Du-kyung, happy birthday, brother. And I'm sorry. I won't listen to you, but only today." And so already in the morning, they all moved out for the operation without Do-kyung. But this time, things didn't go as planned. Everything around him was on fire. He asked himself, how did this happen? Torn up and burning cars, tons of people already dead. We were just, trying to get one last job. Who would have thought it would turn out like this for us? It was chaos out there because the Bomas had come to enjoy human flesh. These ferocious creatures were destroying everything and everyone in their path. Kyung-soo, they're the creatures from the news. The whole town knows about them. They call them Bomas. I can't believe they're not human. It's not good. We can't get the money back. Why is this happening today? I should have listened to Do-kyung. Min-chul intimidated his gaze into the distance and said in a trembling voice, "Kyung-soo?" There stood a large saber-tooth monster that saw them and was ready to tear them apart. The monster licked its teeth, for there was food waiting for it, and rushed to attack them. Kyung-soo ran away and shouted, "Min-chul, run!" But there was no way to save them. The monster was very fast and strong. Kyung-soo's last thoughts were, "Du-kyung, why didn't I listen to you this time?" He impaled them with his long tentacles, causing them to die instantly. There was an explosion at their side. The rest of the team, seeing such a sight, became dumbfounded. Behind them was a ferocious monster that was only eager to kill them quickly. They only said their names, Kyung-soo, Min-chul. Do-kyung was already rushing on his motorcycle to their aid. He had no idea what awaited him when he arrived. I told them not to go, Do-kyung thought, remembering what they had written to him. Kyung-soo had sent him messages before going on the mission. Do-kyung, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. Leave it to us. We want to help one last time. Arriving at the place where the operation was to be, Do-kyung was shocked. As he stopped his motorcycle, he saw a horrifying scene. The whole street was on fire. He couldn't understand anything. He got up from his bike and looked around. What the hell happened here? He asked. Do-kyung, is that you? He looked up and saw Ga-hyun. In the midst of all this devastation, he heard Ga-hyun addressing him, saying, Do-kyung, there's something wrong with me. I can't move. Ga-hyun, I'm running to you. Don't move. He quickly ran up to Ga-hyun, but she was hit by a car. She asked Do-kyung, Am I dying? Do-kyung stroked her head with trembling hands and said, Of course not. I'm sure everything will be fine. Do you hear me? Look at me. You're going to survive. But it was already very late. She had gone to another world, and the last thing she saw was Do-kyung being with her. Her hand slipped down and fell to the ground. Ga-hyun looked at her and couldn't understand it. For him, it was as if it was a terrible dream, and he was about to wake up in a house with his friends. The creatures had already approached Do-kyung and surrounded him. They stared their fierce gazes at him and already wanted to gut him. He pulled Ga-hyun close to him and said, Is it you monsters who killed my friends? To which the saber-toothed tiger that impaled his friends brings them up higher and says, Ah, are these your friends? Hey, brother, did you come for me? That's funny. And appetizing, laughing, said the ferocious monster. Save me, save me. I had to live right for all of you. I should have convinced you to end these dark deeds before it was too late. Happy birthday, Do-kyung. If I had done that, my birthday would have gone differently. Forgive me, you fool. I'm responsible for your death. Now let's deal with you. The monsters surrounded Do-kyung. There were so many of them. Do-kyung, with tears on his face and eyes full of rage, asked, Are you ready to die? He drew his weapon, but it was extraordinary. His gun glowed with blue colors, an unusual weapon for those times. His eyes lit up with the same color as his gun. Prepare to die. The Bomas rushed at Do-kyung from all sides. They were ready to gut him from head to toe. Full of rage, the ferocious monsters didn't even think that this man was extraordinary. They couldn't even imagine what would happen to them. Do-kyung sent all the monsters that I attacked him to the other world. His weapons were so deadly and lightning fast that they didn't even have time to dodge. He simply wiped out all the bombs that attacked him without leaving a single one of them behind. All that was left of the Bomas was their smallest parts of their bodies that Do-kyung hadn't shot through with his weapon. The mid-level bomb who hadn't attacked Do-kyung yet couldn't believe he had slaughtered everyone so quickly. What? He just killed 7 of us at once? Bomb thought. Do-kyung began to reload his weapon. As Bomb realized that he had to act immediately. "I think he's out of ammo," said Bomb, and with his long tongues he lunged at Do-kyung. With one of his long tongues, he hit Do-kyung on the hand where he was holding the ammo for his weapon. He laughed, because now Do-kyung without ammo was easy prey. "I'll play with you like I did with the others," Bomb said. Do-kyung stared at Bomb with a look of rage. But Bomb didn't know that Do-kyung had 2 bullets hidden in his mouth, so he spit them out and loaded the gun. Ferocious Bomb only had time to think. Did he have bullets hidden in his mouth? He aimed straight at Bomb, and at that moment, it was already clear who would emerge victorious from this battle. He shot straight at Bomb, but Bomb managed to dodge the bullet. The ferocious monster's eyes burned with fury. He lunged at Do-kyung with all the speed he could muster. But Do-kyung had his rifle hidden behind his back, which he was able to retrieve while the monster was trying to attack him. The ferocious Bomb did his best to destroy him. Do-kyung took aim at the monster and said, "Hope it doesn't kill you." He shot at the bomb that was attacking him, causing part of the monster to cease to exist. He roared and saw that part of his body was no longer there. There was a loud explosion on the bridge. The monster didn't even realize that his weapons were so much stronger than the ones he had seen before. Everything on the bridge was ablaze with fire. Many cars engulfed in flames had already been burned to the ground. Do-kyung was also seen on the bridge, with his eyes glowing and his rifle glowing. There was only chaos and devastation. The monster, lying in front of Do-kyung, looked at his wound and couldn't believe that this was happening to him. He just said, "No, no! This can't be happening. What the hell is this? This isn't the kind of weapon people normally use. This is bad. I'm dying." Bomb didn't realize it was real. He couldn't realize that his life was over. Do-kyung put the rifle right to the monster's head and said, "I'll leave you some time to apologize for my comrades." The monster said, "Slow down, you idiot! Do you even know who we are? You're wasting your last minutes." Do-kyung said to him, realizing that he had already defeated the monster. But suddenly, out of nowhere, they heard someone hit a rock and it rolled down the bridge, causing them to stare at the rock. At first, they didn't realize where this stone came from and how it rolled towards them. As they stared up at the sky, they heard someone address Bomb. "I can't believe you lost to a human. What a disgrace to the Bomb tribe." A bright red light shone in the sky from behind the clouds. Bomb said, "No, what are they doing here?" Something landed from the sky onto the bridge with a loud whoosh and explosion. From the bright glow that was triggered by the explosion, 2 people could be seen heading towards the monster and Do-kyung. "We sent you here because you're a mid-level bomb, but killing a few people is all you can do," they said to Bomb, who had already been defeated by Do-kyung. In front of them were Mr. Bulti on the left, and on the right, Mr. Morrow. Do-kyung had a thought in his head. Mr. Bulti? Morrow? Do they know each other? Are they really my enemies too? Killing people? And Bomb answered Bulti and Morrow's questions. "I just let my guard down. Everything is under control." Do-kyung pointed his rifle at them and fired without thinking. He had to act, and he made his choice. Bomb, as soon as he saw and heard the shot, he immediately realized that this was not good and said, "Oh no!" Do-kyung was hit right in Bulti's face. The shell exploded as it came in contact with his face. Bomb shouted out, "Mr. Bulti!" Bulti's head was burning from such a shot and burst. A trembling Bomb, looking at his master, said, "His head, she..." And Do-kyung only thought that the other had managed to react in time and dodged the bullet. Morrow said, "Bulti, we don't have time for jokes." Laughter could be heard from under Bulti's flaming head. Bulti scattered the fire around his head, and it was obvious that he had caught the bullet with his teeth and said, "I'm sorry, Morrow, I can't help but make jokes about people every time I meet them." He clenched his jaws, causing the bullet to scatter right in front of him. Do-kyung was stunned by such insolence. He caught the bullet with his teeth. These creatures are monsters, too, Do-kyung thought. Let's get this over with, said Morrow. Bulti walked closer to Do-kyung and said, I'll need all 3 seconds. Do-kyung was confused and didn't know what he should do in such situations. Bulti, wait! You can't use this here, said Bomb, who was trembling with fear. Hey, it'll kill everyone but you two. Bulti used his power to create a kind of matter in his hand, which with its explosion should destroy everything around. Bulti twirled the red matter on his finger, looked at Bomb and said, Your bomb, just dodge it and you'll live. Bomb was absolutely terrified. You've got to be kidding me. Do-kyung tensed up, for he had no backup plan on how to get out of such a situation. There was a huge explosion on the bridge. The cars and concrete in some places began to melt. From such a powerful explosion, Haru had his sense triggered, which he used to determine that there were strong monsters nearby. He froze for a second, trying to feel and determine who it could be. I sense a strong bomb. Is it Hoopo? No, it feels different. Have the Bomas finished their preparations and started hunting already? Thought Haru at the feeling of strength nearby him. If that's the case, we don't have much time. He will use his power to summon the creature he controls and conducts battles. We must hurry, Zeha, said Haru. And Zeha in turn pulled out a sword blazing with blue flames and was ready to fight the Bomas. The powerful explosion that sounded on the bridge shattered the bridge and everything nearby. In all this chaos, 2 people were seen on the bridge, but it was Bulti and Morrow. Bulti was smiling from the work done and was happy. Morrow said, Let's go. We don't have time. To which Bulti replied, Well, he should definitely die from this. And they both fled the scene, leaving only devastation. The bridge was no longer usable because it had been torn in 2. And on one part of the bridge that was lying in the water, Do-kyung was seen lying motionless. It was very hard for him, for he was badly injured. Do-kyung couldn't believe that he had survived. He lay motionless and thought, What the? I survived? It hurts so much. My body. As he reached out to sit up, he felt someone lying next to him. When he barely looked up to see who was there, he saw that Kyung-soo had been lying next to him the whole time, who was crushed by a piece of bridge against another piece of bridge. Do-kyung sat on top of Kyung-soo and started crying. He still couldn't believe that he had lost all his friends. He reached for his rifle and raised it. I will destroy every bomb here, every last one of them, Do-kyung said with unusual fury. 3 months have passed since then. We can see the 3rd district of Shin City. The entire city is on fire. This city is in chaos. In one of the alleyways, one of the bomb hunters escapes, and he is chased by 3 bomb who are eager for his death. Come on, that's completely different from the information I've been given, shouted the man who was running away from the Bomas. No one told me that bullets and swords don't work on them. As he ran away, he said, But they had already caught up with the poor hunter. Hey, I thought you were hunting us. But I can't really tell which one of us is the hunter, said one of the bomb caught up with the man. Let me show you how it's done, said Bomb and pulled out his deadly claws. As soon as the man turned around to look, he saw Bomb's claws that were ready to tear him apart. All he heard Bomb say was, Watch and learn. Blood splattered on the sides. It would seem that this was the end of it, but the fight was just beginning. As Bomb, the man's attacker, stopped and stared forward, he couldn't even think that this blood on the walls of his... In front of him stood Zeha, who with a swing of his sword cut off the arm of Bomb's attacker, causing him to turn around and run in the opposite direction. After 3 months of training, Zeha could already chop low-level Bomas left and right. His sword was glowing blue in color, and his eyes were yellow like some bombs. He swung his sword once more to chase the bombs away from the distance. I can't believe a normal human got you. Serves you right. You shouldn't have let your guard down, said the bombs who were hunting humans together. Don't rub it in my face, replied Bomb to them with his arm cut off. Haru at this moment was calming the man they had saved. He told him, We'll take care of them now. Run to safety. To which he replied with great gratitude, Thank you very much, and ran away wherever he could so as not to be in their way. Zeka stood there and was very happy that he had cut off Bomu's arm because the training had paid off. I really did it. I hurt Bomb, he thought as Haru comforted the frightened man. So that's what it feels like to cut through flesh. completely different from shooting a gun. All the senses are concentrated on my fingertips. Haru saw Zeha frozen and holding the sword with trembling hands. After all, he had only been learning how to use it for 3 months, and now he had cut off the monster's arm. "Calm down," said Haru. "Worrying will only hinder you. Take a deep breath and take a closer look. They're all low-level bomas. 3 months ago, you couldn't even leave a scratch on them, and now you're capable of fighting against them." The bomas were already eager to start fighting, for they were hungry and angry. "Don't forget the reason you're doing this," said Haru to him. Zeha put his sword in front of him and said, "The reason I'm fighting them, it's to avenge Hoopo for killing my family and to close the portal with these monsters forever," Zeha thought to himself before the battle with the monsters. And now they are already flying at full speed at Zeha. That would tear him into small pieces because a normal mortal cannot resist them. But Zeha, dodging the blows, slips between them to get a good position and finish them off once and for all. He flies through them and stands in his place ready to destroy the monsters. These fierce creatures attack all at once, leaving no chance for Zeha. As soon as he stopped and stared at the monsters' positions, he realized what he had to do. With a stroke of his sword, he cut through the body of one of the monsters like butter, chopping them all down without mercy. He embedded his sword in one of the monsters and swung it to cause irreparable damage to the monster and take away its hopes for life. But it didn't end there. The monster screamed in pain. And Zeha made a check cut to the monster. He cut him in two, and he dropped dead. That left one-armed bomb to deal with, who at this moment was trembling as he watched and thought, "He killed them in the blink of an eye. I've never fought anyone stronger than me. I must report this to Bulti right away." Bomb, running away from the scene of the massacre, thought about how he could get the messages to Bulti as soon as possible so that he could deal with this man. Haru saw Bomb running and said, "Zeha," and he said, "I know," and ran after Bomb so he couldn't get away from them. But Bomb had no idea what would happen to him in the next few seconds. A bullet appeared right in front of him and flew straight at his head. He noticed it so late that there was no way to dodge it. His head shattered into small pieces, and he fell to the ground dead before he could deliver the message to Bulti. Zeha didn't see Bomb's gunfire. Stopping, he thought, "Did that bomb just explode?" But Do-kyung appeared in front of him and said, "I didn't know there were still people in the 3rd district. I'm sorry for scaring you." Haru questioned him. "Who are you?" Walking up to them, Do-kyung said, "I don't see the point of getting acquainted in the middle of this chaos, but my name is Do-kyung. And you two? Who are you two?" Do-kyung stared at Zeha and was already ready to shoot. He looked straight into Zeha's eyes and said, You smell like Bomb." Pointing his rifle right in Zeha's face, he asked, "Are you sure you're human?" "I don't know what you're talking about," said Zeha. The rifle was pointed straight at Zeha's face. Do-kyung looked at him and couldn't figure out if he was a human or one of those bombs that take on the appearance of a person. Zeha looked at Do-kyung and wondered in his head, "Am I not being recognized as a human?" And immediately remembered how Hoopo had told him that he was the fruit of Bomb and human love. To be more precise, your mother was from a tribe of bears. He continued to stare and thought, how do I explain this? Haru moved the weapon away from Zeha's face and said, "You carry such a dangerous object with you, I assure you we are only hunters who kill bomas. So it's not surprising that their scent was absorbed into our clothes while hunting." "So you are bomb hunters?" Do-kyung asked. "It doesn't look like you have a gun of any kind. Do you kill bomas with this sword?" Do-kyung asked Zeha and Haru. "Well, since you are my hunting companions, then answer this question. Have you ever seen or heard of a bomb called Maro or Bulti?" Do-kyung asked them. To which Haru answered him, "We know Bomb Hoopa, but those names don't tell us anything." "Really? Then let me give you some advice as an apology for pointing a gun at you. You had better avoid those bombs I just told you about. They are nothing like these wimps. They are both strong and can even change their appearance to human. Anyway, I'm taking back what I killed. Until the next time we meet, well, if we all stay alive," Do-kyung told them, getting on his motorcycle with one of the bomas he shot in the head. "Looks like he's after a special bomb too," said Zeha. Haru added, "We need to hurry before the sun goes down." Walking through the city, they needed to replace the weapons Zeha was using. "Do you see this, Haru? There's 100 million won here. Never thought the day would come when I could make that much money. Wow, there are so many zeros." To which Haru replies, "It's not even half enough to buy a decent sword. The reward for each of Bomb's heads is 50 million won." Ever since Hua-Woon announced the reward for bomb hunters, more and more people have been spending all their time hunting, and the number of stores selling weapons and protection has increased. Zeha listened to Haru and answered him, "That's right. This low-quality sword is the best I could buy for 100 million won. The good ones sell for 400, 500 million. Haru said to Zeha, "Look at your sword. It's on the verge of breaking after killing 3 bomas. Kill one more and it's sure to fall apart." Zeha answered him, "Yes, you're absolutely right. The word on the streets was, we just got word that the museum was attacked. Visitors and employees are dead." But Zeha and Haru didn't hear it. As they walked by, people said, "I can't believe the museum was attacked." And Haru saw the sword and immediately said to Zeha, "There it is." To which Zeha replied to him, "What? What do you mean?" Haru said, "That's what we need." And Zeha, not realizing what Haru was talking about, asks him, "You mean the news anchor? Do you want to kidnap him?" "No, you're looking in the wrong place. I'm talking about the sword. That ancient sword? Why? My sword is battered, but even so it looks stronger than him," said Zeha, confident in his words, because the sword on the news channel wasn't in the best condition. "Come on, Zeha, hurry up," Haru insisted. "Are you sure you're talking about him? We'll end up in jail if we get caught stealing it," Zeha objected. "This sword belongs to us," Haru said with a happy face and started shoving Zeha. "What? Not everything we want. No, what you want is ours." Zeha objected to him, to which he replied, "Don't argue with me and show me the way. Hurry up, we need him." Zecha, with a face objection, said, "Haru, you need to study how we humans work." It was already dark and the full moon came out. It was quite chilly outside and scary, for the bomas could attack at any moment. There was dead silence in the museum, for the bomas had attacked it and destroyed everyone who worked there and was there. They prowled the halls of the museum looking for any remaining humans or hunters. At this time, there was a team of hunters in the museum who were stuck there with a lot of bomas, which they would hardly be able to defeat because the superiority of the bomas is that they are much more numerous. They sat as quietly as possible and whispered so they wouldn't be spotted or they'd be finished. "We're out of ammo." "This is the end for us," said one man from their team, to which another member of the team replied, "You didn't have to say it so loud." And the one from below, who was peeking at how far away the nearest bomb was from them, said, "There are too many bombs here compared to 3 months ago." "Strange. We ran into these bomas almost an hour ago, but neither the police nor the army are coming to our aid," said one of them, to which the girl from the team replied, "Oh, you're right. They should have been here by now." Something's going on in Shin City, that's for sure, if we can just get out of here. "All nervous about what's going on," said one of the team. But then one of the bomas appeared above them, sniffing out its prey in order to get rid of it quickly and satiate itself with humanity. They held their breath so as not to draw attention to themselves. As soon as they paid attention to this bomb, they were ready that now all the bombs from the museum will run to them. They looked straight into Bomb's eyes, and it seemed like he saw them too, as suddenly Zeha and Haru walked into the museum, not knowing the news that the museum was attacked. They were walking and talking. "It's great here, there's no one around," said Zeha so that he could be heard by the bomas. "Zeha, let's look around here and take anything that seems useful," said Haru with joy in his voice, to which Zeha replied, "Hey, it's not like we're in a buffet. We can't take whatever we want." The bomas were going for the voice they heard from Haru and Zeha, and the human team immediately realized that this was their chance for salvation. One of the humans thought, "I hear voices. Are they humans?" "I guess robbers never miss a chance, even in times like this," said one of them. "This is the perfect opportunity for them right now. You don't realize how many people are out there stealing and robbing others with guns they bought pretending to be bomb hunters." A guy from their team complimented her. The youngest of them said, "Yeah, but we're alive because of them." Haru walks and says, "Ancient sword, ancient sword. Where is it?" "Oh, there it is, lying there waiting for us." But suddenly they heard a sound, and Zeha asked, "What was that sound?" Haru immediately realized what it was and replied, "The bomas are coming." Zeha said, "I can handle one or two," and drew his sword. The bomas were coming from all sides. There were many, many ferocious monsters. Haru started to use his power to stop the bombs. He created a net across the room, which he used to pin the monsters down and not give them a chance to get to them. But there were so many bombs. They were trying to squeeze through the net with great force to feed on the humans. The mesh wouldn't hold for long, especially with so many monsters. Some monsters poked their heads through and tried to tear the mesh. Zeka ran up to chop the monsters so that they wouldn't get through the net. He cut off the head of one of the bombs and was ready to attack the others. Suddenly his sword cracked and shattered, just as Juro said it would be enough for one or two monsters. He watched his part of the sword fall to the floor and realized that now he had no choice but to steal the sword from the museum. "No! My sword!" thought Zeha at that moment. But some bomas had already broken through the net and were running to attack Zeha. A monster tried to strike at Zeha, but he managed to jump back. At that moment, Haru's net tore completely, and all the monsters rushed in to kill them. Haru fell to the ground from such a strong rush of monsters. "Haru!" shouted out Zeha after seeing all of this. He threw his gaze at the ancient sword that was lying in the museum. After breaking the glass, Zeha thought, "Oh, I can't even believe I only have this ancient sword left. I don't know how long it will last, but please don't break until I save Haru." Zeha ran towards the crowd of bomas with the words, "Haru, I'm coming to help you." He felt something different when the sword was in his hands. The sword began to glow with a blue light, and in his hands it was as if... What's going on? Zeka thought, looking at the ancient sword. The monsters had already taken Zeha away and were attacking from all flanks. Meanwhile, the Tiger Butterfly team was running for their lives from the museum. "We barely survived, thanks to those robbers," said one of them. Their commander thought, "It's a shame we owe those thieves our lives." And at that moment, a man ran out to meet them and ran towards the bombs. "What the hell?" he thought, and was surprised at the speed at which he ran past them. Another robber! How stupid of him to run into a place filled with bomas, thought one of the team. But he didn't care. He just ran as fast as he could. Zeha watches the sword blazing blue flames in his hands and thinks, "What kind of sword is that?" The monsters are about to pounce on Zeha, but the sword shows its history to Zeha so that he realizes the power it holds. "I will lead you to the front," said the man with the sword. "I will slay the bomas with the sword of death." He showed his sword to the people, "and bring peace to our land." Zeha watched this and thought how the memories of this sword had gotten into his head through the sword. All the bomas that stood near Zeha were as if they were behind glass that would crack over time. And so when the glass had already cracked from the onslaught of the bombs that stood behind it, the sword had recovered and was no longer like some ancient sword. The bomb behind him was already striking, but Zeha was only thinking about the sword. "The sword has transformed. Did that man nickname it the Sword of Death?" Zeha didn't have time to react before he swung his sword several times. He was shocked as the bomas standing nearby were chopped into small pieces. He just swung on his own, Zeka thought, and didn't understand how this was possible. But the other bomas were already on their way, rushing to attack Zeha. Zeha gripped his sword with both hands and began to defend Huro from these fierce creatures. "This is no time to be distracted. I have to help Haru first," said Zeha. In the reflection of the sword, one could see the essence of what this sinister sword was hiding. He began to move so fast that it kicked up dust. He swung the sword so fast that the monsters couldn't realize what was killing them so fast with such lightning speed. All the bomas standing in front of him were chopped into dozens of pieces. And when Zeha was already near Haru, only then did they start to fall apart. So fast and lightning fast he had cut them. He was breathing heavily, for it was taking a lot of his strength as it turned out. But the bomas seemed to have no end. They came again and again. The sword trembled in Zeha's hands. Wait, the sword just now felt like it weighed a ton, Zeha thought, struggling to hold the sword. Ah, not just the sword. Even my clothes have started to feel heavy. It can't be. Am I exhausted already? Zeha asked himself. That's too bad. There are still a few bomas left. How am I supposed to deal with them? On one side of Zeha, a bomb was sneaking up on him who wanted to take him by surprise. He released his tentacle, which was in the palm of his hand, straight at Zeha. But Haru's technique saved Zeha. Everything happened so fast that Zeha didn't even follow everything a little bit. Zeha, you have to pull yourself together. Haru, are you okay? Haru's technique attacked the bombs and destroyed them. Just after flattening one bomb, they realized that he was vaporized and disappeared somewhere. He's gone. But this bomb had already snuck up to attack from a position where he had a better chance of being undetected. And now he's attacking Zeha, and he doesn't even realize it. But Bomb gets hit by a blow they didn't expect. Bomb was in a lot of pain from the attack and flew to the back of the room. And while he was flying, he was hit by a couple more of these attacks. As it turned out later, it was the archer with his arrows who had run past the hunting team a little earlier. He was shooting so fast with his bow as if it was an automatic weapon. He loaded arrow after arrow and released them at lightning speed, hitting the bomas in front of him with each one. But he was so engrossed in the monsters that before he knew it, that one of the bomas was coming at him from behind. Zeha yelled, "Behind you!" And he only had time to turn around. And Bomb hit him hard in the chest, knocking him straight into the wall with a loud thud. Bomb only smiled, for he would be very happy that he had taken out at least one person. But he didn't rejoice for long, for having lost his guard altogether, his head shattered into two pieces. It was all thanks to Zeha, who, with his sharpest sword, made such a blow. Haru and Zeha stood shoulder to shoulder, as there were only a few bomas left to be destroyed. The remaining bomas looked at everything that had happened, and as much as they wanted to fight, they had little chance of winning. They turned and ran away, to which Haru and Zeha reacted with surprise because they were exhausted. "We're alive," Zeka said. The archer lying on the floor still hadn't regained consciousness. "Who do you think this mysterious guy is? Is he even alive?" asked Zeha. "We have to get him out of here. It's dangerous," answered Haru to him. Well, looks like you've decided to continue your game of hunting. I came here to see what everyone was running from, and look what we found here," says the team leader to them. Zeha, seeing his face, says, "It's you again." Walking into the room where they were fighting, there were a lot of dead bomas. "We are taking everything in this room with us. Get out quickly if you don't want to get hurt like last time," the team leader told them.